Okay, so the point of this little excerpt here and the recording that you're listening to is that I want to get a context for and inform ourselves of some attitudes, beliefs, and thinking with respect to our next topic. Before we get more into what our next topic is all about, I want to go ahead and have us read together what you see here. So I found these excerpts on social media. I will be honest and let you know that I don't know a lot about the direct source. You can see that this says something about Uncle Sam's misguided children. It said like this page. I'm guessing that that's from Facebook. I know I saw this on Facebook and then I did an internet search, but I can't recall any more than that. But of course, this is not my point of view. I am sharing with you a point of view that some people hold in America. Same thing over here. It says truth or fiction, seeking truth and exposing fiction since 1999. Of course, just because somebody says that they're seeking truth and exposing fiction that's lies or things that are made up, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're telling the truth. Of course, they could just claim to be seekers of truth, but really not care about truth, but want to deceive someone. So keep that in mind. The point is that what we're going to be reading here is a point of view. So you're going to want to have some intellectual humility and say, okay, I don't know everything that other people might, I'm only one person and I know that there are always things that I can learn. And so one thing you're going to learn about is a point of view. The other thing you need is intellectual empathy. So we're not going to read this to evaluate it or to make any judgments about it of any kind. We're just going to read to understand. So we need to put our own biases, our own feelings, our emotions on hold to try to grasp accurately what it is that is being said by the speakers in this post. So with that said, we know that the source is called Uncle Sam's Misguided Children, a post from many other truckers. So supposedly they are speaking on behalf of truckers in this post. And it says, "Dear America, we are serious." Notice the capital letters, everybody. "The American trucker will not be held hostage, threatened, robbed, or killed. We will not be a victim. We will not be this generation's version of Reginald Denny. Every driver knows that name. Do you? Students, I'm thinking that you may not know who Reginald Denny is. You might want to spend 2 to 5 minutes learning who Reginald Denny is, and I might talk about Reginald Denny in another video for this step. But for right now, let's continue. The speaker goes on to say, on behalf of American truckers, that we will defend ourselves every time, up to and including using our 80,000-pound trucks and its 1,800 foot-pounds of torque to run you over. Cities where looting, rioting, and stopping trucks is happening, you are hereby put on notice. So guys, as you will recall, something that happened in 2020 that caused a lot of uproar in America, protest, and even looting, which we're going to touch on at the end of the semester for our little end of the semester forum, was the killing of George Floyd and all the looting. Remember that they were protesting and then protesting. After a while, there were riots associated with protesting and even looting, right? And so the trucker is speaking to when situations like this happen. So the speaker goes on to say, "Threaten, delay, attempt to stop a truck. We, the American trucker, will consider that act as an attack on our lives. We will defend ourselves, our equipment, and our load. Food, medicine, hospital supplies, gasoline, and a million other daily items we deliver to your cities are apolitical." So students, when somebody says apolitical, that means that it has nothing to do with politics. So he's saying all of these things have nothing to do with politics. And so the idea here is that looters and protesters should not get in the way of stopping the delivery of things that have nothing to do with politics as far as this speaker is concerned. Everyone needs them, including your dumbass. Whoa, okay. So guys, again, this is not my wording. I would never speak to you like that, and we should not speak to each other in this class like that. But we're reading his words, right? So some colorful language there. "We don't need to come to your lawless city. You need us to deliver food supplies to your city." This is very interesting because we are going to be looking at a thought experiment that's original to me that I have constructed for you. And what I'm going to do is combine the killing of George Floyd and the looting and riots and protests that happened afterwards with the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to have a thought experiment where a truck driver is trying to deliver COVID-19, but George Floyd protesters are blocking the freeway. So we'll get more into that in a minute. I do want to read this next. We drivers have social media too. If your city becomes too chaotic and violent, that's a sentence fragment right there. Notice that this is not, one thing I don't want you guys to think is that this is an example of really great writing, because it's not necessarily the case. This right here is what we call a sentence fragment, from the if to the violent. So don't use these as models of great writing. Again, what's the point? We're trying to get a point of view. We're using intellectual empathy to see how someone else thinks about a topic. Becomes too unsafe for us. Word will spread very quickly amongst the 3.5 million truckers. We will stop delivering to your city, period. No driver will drive into a city that reminds us of a scene from a Mad Max movie. Again, this is an older generation here that is being represented, and the speaker as well. You may not know about Mad Max. If you want to get a little bit of cultural, pop culture education, go ahead and at least Google Mad Max, but don't spend more than 2 to 3 minutes on that, because that's not really important. Threaten an American truck driver while he's working, and it will take you and your city down a path where you will lose. Take a moment and seriously think. Do you really want to risk your doctor not having the supplies he needs while you're in surgery? Do you really want to stop medicines keeping your kids and parents alive? Again, I'm using these questions and these comments here, plus some other stuff in here, for us to work through a thought experiment. But let's continue to get some context and to understand somebody else's point of view using intellectual empathy. Keep your silly, what do you guys think goes in there? It's ASS, off the U.S. internet and the U.S. highway system. Congregating in the roadway will only get you run over. Having people standing and blocking the highway is a threat to our physical safety, and we will respond appropriately to your attack. Notice, that's very strong language, right? Standing in the roadway is not a protest. It is an attack on our safety. Air horns will sound, steering wheels will be held tightly, but those brakes will not be touched. You will move or you will die. 80,000 pounds at 70 miles per hour will win every time. Stay out of the roadway. So another thing that I want to add, and for extra credit, you can add this at the end of your topic response, is what intellectual virtue did I continue to emphasize? What intellectual virtue did I say that you needed to manifest while we read through this? Okay. Now, why is this intellectual virtue so important? Because we can't understand a point of view until we've tried to, we can't critique a point of view until we try to understand it. So first, whether or not we agree with this or disagree with this is a separate issue. To know whether we agree or disagree with something, we first have to make sure we understand what that something is all about, what that something says. We have no business judging something that we have not tried to first understand. And that's why intellectual empathy is so important. It's not right or fair to judge somebody's point of view and evaluate it unless you first made a genuine effort to understand it. And so we have to make a genuine effort to understand where these truckers are coming from. Also very important. When you're practicing intellectual empathy, that doesn't mean that you agree with what they say. It doesn't mean that you accept what they have to say. So never tell me that you're expressing intellectual empathy because you agree with somebody or merely because you agree or merely because you accept. No, you can express intellectual empathy, understand where somebody's coming from with their logic and their concepts, and still disagree with them. But you don't know you disagree with somebody unless you first try to use intellectual empathy to see what it is that they say, to know what it is you agree or disagree with. And that's the case in the discussion boards. You cannot properly respond to a peer, whether you're just saying you agree or disagree with something, whether you like what they said, whatever, unless you practice intellectual empathy first. I mean, what are you even talking about unless you try to understand where someone came from or where someone is coming from? So for extra credit, in complete sentences at the end of your topic response, answer the following questions. What intellectual virtue did I stress was needed to read through this with me? What did I say you needed what did I say intellectual empathy is? And of course, this comes from an earlier lesson. What did I say it is not? And then what did I say, and for what kind of assignment in this class did I say intellectual empathy is definitely required. And really, intellectual empathy is required for all of the assignments, but I just connected intellectual empathy to a specific kind of assignment in this class. Make sure you write your sentences, write your answers in complete sentences, include wording from the questions, the stems from the questions, so I can know when you're answering which of the questions I just asked. I'll give you a point for each question that you answer to my satisfaction. And make sure you don't plagiarize. If you quote me, that's one thing. Use quotation marks, clean up the English. Otherwise, paraphrase me.